死ぬかと思ったしね、これ。枚数は買ってるけど、金額も。すみません、いらっしゃいませ。オールプラザでは。サービスです。
So, if you're anything like I once was, you might wonder, how do I get to Japan? And, there's always the obvious way, which is to buy a ticket and come here. And, that kind of would be my recommended way, even though you take a major risk, because the other way to come here is to try to get a job, on some website. And, there's so many of those websites, no sense to list them off. The major ones is Gaijin Pod or Jobs in Japan. And once upon a time, getting a job on those websites was not too difficult. You would just put in your resume and application, and you'd get some email replies pretty much within 24 hours. What I used to do, even 5 years ago, I would just apply to everything, kind of like the way you would on Tinder, how you would just keep swiping. You use that mentality with looking for jobs. It's like you apply to everybody, and then you pick and choose which ones you would respond to, or which ones you would go to an interview for. But today it's really not like that. Today I find in 2017 you apply to 10, and it's a very high probability none of them will want you. You apply to 20, maybe you'll get an email saying that they're going to consider looking over your application, right? Because a lot of times you don't even get any kind of email saying that they got your resume. And maybe if you apply to 50, if you're lucky, one will give you an interview. And I'm not joking here. This is coming from somebody who has 5 years teaching experience, a TEFL degree, a bachelor's degree, a 2-year degree, and I'm also about to get a master's degree. And none of that stuff is helpful. And the reason that is because these days a lot of Japanese employers don't want to hire people abroad anymore. They don't want to pay the money for the visa sponsorship. And I'm sure there's many reasons for this. In my opinion, the reason is that many foreigners are already here. They already have a work visa. Or maybe they're already here on a tourist visa. And why hire somebody abroad and take a chance? You don't know who this person is. You don't know how they speak. You don't know what their like in person. Why take the risk on someone like that when you can actually have someone living here already who's unemployed looking for work? And it's just ironic that the internet age has brought so many more people online, and there's so much more people on the internet than there used to be, and yet the employers seem to prefer the ones who are in person, who are offline, you might say. I have, this is a theory, but it's also proof. In my case, when I come here and I put in job applications, I find that I'll get a better percentage than 10% of getting a reply, while in the past it would be like 1%. No joke. I know that sounds funny, but that's exactly how it is for me. There would be times where I would just recently I spent 2 months just trying to find a job in Japan while I was in China. 2 months. Every day I would apply to all the jobs that they put up on their website. So generously, you might, if you did the math, I was easily doing over 500 applications a month. Over 500 applications a month. Keep in mind that that's a very conservative number. The real number is likely much higher than that. And I had one interview. 1 out of 500, I had one interview. And that's another thing with jobs in Japan. One interview is never enough. They always want the one interview, and then if you pass that interview, they give you another one, which is a different person usually, or maybe it's more specific. And then sometimes they even give you a third interview. And what sucks about that is it's just harder and harder to get the job when you have to go through 3 interviews. You could screw up any of them, and they don't tell you why you don't get the job. That's another big thing for people who apply to jobs online. I'm sure you know by now. They don't tell you why you passed or failed, because they just don't want to waste the time. So with me, I always get, we're sorry to inform you we've chosen other applicants, or we've chosen another applicant. And it's funny because it makes you wonder, like, I'm not going to be cocky or anything, but I'm pretty qualified. Like, I already listed off my credentials. How many more applicants are they getting that are more qualified than me? I don't think that that's a very large number, but it always happens. So I'm sure if I had the reason, maybe they might say, oh, you didn't smile enough, or maybe you smiled too much, or anything small that could really help me out. It would be greatly appreciated, but they never tell you. So that kind of hurts your confidence. So back to the topic. You've seen why applying online is not really a way to go, especially if you're someone who just graduated college. You can't just put your life on hold forever and just say, oh, I'm going to just apply to jobs and get a job in Japan, because you'll find that maybe a year will pass, 2 years, and you still don't have a job. And I'm serious, that can happen. So what you have to do is keep doing what you're doing in life. Don't put your life on hold for Japan. Like, if you're working, keep working. If you're saving money for something you want in your life, if you have some opportunity that you're awarded, definitely go with it, because Japan is really a hard place to get to if you're not already here. You know what I'm saying. It's really hard to get a chance here if you're not already in the country. Extremely hard. I would say, unless you're a graduate from an Ivy League school, or unless you have over a decade of teaching experience, I would say it's extremely difficult in 2017 to be hired online and get visa sponsorship and come here. And there will be videos on other YouTubers who say that that's how they did it, but keep in mind what I said. That's the way it used to be. It's not like that anymore. Part of the reason is because Japanese employers have found that Filipinos are a very good option because they don't look Japanese, so they have the foreign face that they like so much. And a lot of Filipinos speak English fluently. So they figure, why hire a white foreigner or a black foreigner who likely will need more money and be lazier and not put in the work ethic that a fellow Asian would. It's a stereotype, but that's a stereotype they believe in. And so when they hire Filipinos, the whole process is easier for them, and they don't have to pay them as much money as they would someone from Europe or America or New Zealand or Australia or any other English-speaking country. They don't have to pay them as much, and they don't. They don't have to give them the same kind of benefits that they would give one of us. For example, for many foreigners, they pay a travel expense. So they'll pay for your flight after you get here, or they'll give you a 1-year bonus. They don't do these kind of things for a lot of Filipinos. And so it's like win-win for them. So today, there are much less jobs open for white people in Japan because of the different options that Japanese employers have. It's the same thing as America does when they outsource to Indian people, right? You find one, like whatever you call Walmart or Amazon.com, it's an Indian person because they're cheaper and you don't have to give them as much money. And it's tough and it sucks, but that's just the way of the world now. So if you want to try to get a job in Japan, best advice is to just come here. And for many people that is a risk, because you're not rich. Coming here as a tourist gives you very limited options of where to stay. It's very hard to rent an apartment here as a tourist. There's tons of, maybe dozens of real estate agencies here, but I've only known of 2 who will hire foreigners or who will rent out to foreigners. I've only found 2. There might be more, but there's not much more. For me, that would be the Sakura House, and I don't remember the name of the other one. But this is a very small number, and usually the only agencies that do it are located in Tokyo or Osaka or Kyoto. So if you're one of those people that want to experience like real Japan and go someplace like Hokkaido or Kyushu or Okinawa, you're gonna have a very hard time, and understandably so. If you rent to a tourist, they could just dump you and leave any day. They don't really have any kind of leverage on you to take care of the place. You don't have a credit card. A lot of foreigners, there's so many reasons. So you got to come here and either live with a friend or relative or stay at a hotel. These things are very expensive. There's a share house too, but it's very expensive to just come here and try to look for a job. And even if you're someone who is lucky and you find a job within a week, you pass all the interviews by the grace of God within a week, it's still a 1 to 3 month process for you to get your work visa once you're here. So most likely you're going to have to leave the country after you come here already. Like after you spent $700 to come here, after you've dropped another several $100s on an apartment or hotel or whatever, now you're going to have to leave the country so you can enter back in, because that's how you get work visas. So you got to leave and come back, or you can stay at an apartment and continue to pay hundreds of dollars a month. All in all, you're looking at several $1,000s up front just to get the job to come here. And then once you have the job, they won't give you your paycheck or any kind of income until after the first month of working, usually. So you really need a ton of money saved up to just take a risk, come here and look for a job. And I say 1 week, that would be somebody who's extremely lucky. I've come here for a month before and not found a job in a 1 month period. And I was extremely qualified. So, these are really things you got to think about, and I don't want to crush anybody's dream. I loved the idea of coming to Japan and working. I thought I'd be happy, but once you really come here, you learn things that you would not learn on the computer. You have to experience them. You can't be told these things. You just have to, find your way in life, and that's kind of what happens. For some people, your dreams will be crushed once you come here, and for some people, you watch videos like this where people are a little bit negative, but the truth is still there nonetheless, and maybe you think of a better option. or a different path, then you're better for it. I've never really come to a country, taken a major risk and failed, because I'm just not a person who would ever do something like that. It would destroy me. I would be so pissed I would never get over it. So I always try to make sure my options are at least safe, not too risky. But even if you're someone who made a plan that seems safe, like I said, it's still going to cost you several $1,000s. Unless you're someone who lives in Korea and you're very close by, you can leave and come back, which is only a few $100s. It's going to be very expensive. Now for me, when I came to Japan to look for a job, I was already living in Shanghai. So to take a flight from Japan to Shanghai is a few hundred US. If I wanted to go back to my country, that would be $700 to $1,000. So you would pay way more than me. So the whole few $1,000s estimate, it's conservative number. So what you guys got to think is, do I want to spend huge amounts of time applying to a job online and possibly never get hired? Do I want to spend thousands of dollars to come here and try to find a job, take a risk, and go over the whole, several months waiting time for the visa and paying for a place to stay in the meantime, have fun, it's going to be a huge amount of money. Or maybe you're someone who thinks you'll study abroad, go on a study abroad program. And, that's fine too. And these criticisms and truths are coming from someone who's an American. Now, if you're someone from outside of America, you have other options. You have what do they call a holiday visa, where you don't need a 4-year degree, and there are certain things that are easier for you. So if you're someone who's not American, you have a much easier time coming here. An American, sadly, even though America is one of Japan's allies, sadly, it's very hard for us to come here and just find a job. That's why you find there are very few Americans working here in Japan. If you see a white guy at a bar, or if you see a white guy on the street or going to work, you talk to him, most of the time he's European or Australian, most of the time, because it's so hard for us. So, I could talk about this subject forever, but it's something people should be more aware of. There's not a lot of videos on this kind of thing, so yeah. Hope you like the video. More to come. If you have any questions, just give me a comment and I'll address it. I got nothing better to do. Catch you later.